Hello there, everyone, and I just wanted to share with you, if you haven't seen one of these, the truly absurd spectacle of one Tory MP interviewing another Tory MP on our airwaves. Now, I don't know how this is allowed. I don't know when this became okay. I don't know why Ofcom aren't stepping in and doing anything. Well, I do, because Ofcom is chaired by a Tory. That being Michael Grade, who sat as a Conservative in the House of Lords prior to becoming chairman of Ofcom, at which point he became a crossbencher in the House of Lords. I'm sorry, that doesn't make you any less of a Conservative. He's an old man. His political views aren't just going to suddenly shift just because he's become the chairman of Ofcom and forced to become a crossbencher. It doesn't mean he's any less of a Conservative. And the chief executive of Ofcom is Melanie Dawes, who is married to Benedict Brogan, who was former deputy editor and chief political commentator for the Daily Telegraph. Those are the two head honchos at Ofcom. Is it all making sense now? Anyway, let's just watch this. It's an absurd spectacle where they can set any narrative they want. To be fair to Kwasi Kwarteng, I think even he sees how absurd Nadine Dorries is. But my God, what a worthless bit of TV this is. Let's take a look.
Welcome back to Friday Night with Nadine. My next guest is the former Chancellor who worked side by side with Liz Truss while she was Prime Minister. But before that, Kwasi Kwarteng was one of Boris Johnson's closest allies in his cabinet as Business Secretary and one of my colleagues too. Kwasi joins me now with his reaction to Boris's treatment to the Privileges Committee this week. So, how do you think it went? They're going to find him guilty, aren't they?
Well, I think they probably will. And also, how he did is just totally dependent on what you think about him. So the people who don't like him said he did terribly. And the people who like him thought he did reasonably well. My view was that he was going to do as well as he could, given the composition.
Reasonably well? That sounds like damning with faint
praise.
No,
I think look, it was a difficult wicket, and I think he did a reasonable job, a good job. But the people who were on that committee, you know them, I know them. These were not Boris fans.
No, not one of them.
Not one of them. And so, you know, they had legitimate questions. I think we can't say they were necessarily biased, but they had their own views about what they thought about Boris. Yeah. And I think that's going to inform their judgment.
A difficult wicket, by the way. And then that you would only ever hear that from the mouth of a posh individual, let's say. A difficult wicket.
Yeah. So one of the things that I found really difficult, and it actually gets me slightly
emotional,
exercised, is the fact that partway through, they decided they were going to find him guilty. They decided what they were going to find him guilty for, which is, they say the advice he took from Director General's Cabinet Secretary was not senior enough, that he should have called in lawyers. And therefore, in order to find him guilty of that, they inserted the word reckless into the terms of reference. Now, you and I know, I don't want to bore people, but all privileges and procedures in the House of Commons, we use a Bible called Erskine May.
That's right.
You know, the Green Book, which people will see sat on the big oak table in the middle of the dispatches box. Everything is done by Erskine May. You've picked it up, I've picked it up off the table to check something. The clerks are constantly picking it up. And this committee decided to set a precedent and to abandon Erskine May and to insert their own word, reckless, into the terms of reference, to widen the net in order to catch him. Now, I think that is an absolute abuse of the Privileges Committee's position.
So
it is absurd for someone like Nadine Dorries to start banging on about Erskine May. People like this, who lie unrelentingly. Erskine May, to the Tory party, went out the window years ago. They have been telling mistruths for years.
My view about that is, if you think about it from their point of view, This is what I actually think is going through their heads. I think that they feel that there has to be something, some outcome, some verdict in which he's held responsible or culpable. I mean, imagine if we had all of this furore, all of this committee, and they said he did nothing wrong. That would be, that's the pressure really I think they're under. And we've been on House of Commons committee, or certainly I've been on 4 or 5 of them. And the reason why they have different parties and they're split in a balanced way is because people recognise that they all have their own views. So you have 5 members of the Defence Committee who are Tories, 4 who are Labour, and it reflects the balance in the House. And that's exactly the same in the Privileges Committee. And it just so happens that the people on that committee were not pro-Boris. I mean, they're not people who necessarily backed him.
But there's a question mark over every individual member.
Oh my God. She won't stop. She's obsessed. I mean, this is a disgrace. Occupying airwaves on our TVs to smearing people on an impartial committee.
Of that committee.
Well, I haven't scrutinised their CVs in the way. I mean, I know them personally.
I mean, look at Kwarteng. She's making Kwarteng look reasonable.
Yeah,
and I think they're fair-minded.
When you're saying they're not pro-Boris, they're actually actively anti-Boris. I mean, I think...
Of course they are. Yeah, of course they are, Nadine. Yeah.
Charles Walker did his best to...
Yeah, he played the straight
He did.
bad,
He played a straight band. So Charles Walker is a good guy. He's a good man.
But you don't like the other people?
No, it's not that I don't like them. It's just that, and Charles, when people look at it, has said, maybe it's time for the Prime Minister to go, yada, yada.
Sure.
He hasn't actually put out tweets saying, I think he's guilty.
No, that's right.
Before he even go. Can you imagine a judge in a court of law?
But it isn't
and a judge tweeting this guy's guilty?
So it's not,
while
so
I
it's
know
not
it's not, but the principles of just and fairness
I hear what you're saying.
apply.
So where I agree with you is that if you look at the individual people on the committee and their record and what they've said in the past, that there are very few people who support the Prime Minister. I think that they would try and be professional. I think they're professional people. But you can't get rid of your bias. You can't get rid of the fact of what your opinions are. You can't get rid of the fact this is the most dynamic and some might say controversial political figure in the last 25 years. Of course they're going to have views on him.
The irony is, pardon me, I've got a sore throat. The irony is, Nadine Dorries can't see her own bias. It's extraordinary. Like, to call other people biased against him. What the hell does she think she is? Impartial? She thinks she's impartial, does she?
And of course those views are going to affect their verdict. I mean, I don't believe, even if they tried, that they would necessarily be as impartial as you and I would like to see.
No. So I think we're both agreed they're going to find him guilty because they would look, as far as they're concerned, they want to be seen to have done their job.
That's right. It would be like, what was all the fuss about?
So that leads to the next question. What are their sanctions going to be?
I don't think their sanctions will be extreme. I think that could backfire.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing the government needs, the last thing the party needs, is a whole circus around Boris and
by-election.
All of that business. So I don't think necessarily they're going to go that far, but I think they will sanction him.
Because if there was a by-election, it's very likely we'd lose it.
It's very likely we would lose it. How is this on television?
I don't ever speculate about by-elections.
Well, we don't have to speculate. We just need to look at the polls.
If you look at the polls and you take a uniform swing and you look at Boris's seat, it's
pretty academic.
If it were held tomorrow, then there's a good chance that Labour would win the seat. But by-elections have their own dynamics.
They do, and they don't always work well for us.
No. So look, I think it would be questions would be asked if nothing happened.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of the sanctions, I don't think they're necessarily going to go to the full extent. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Well, we'll look back on this when the sanctions arrive. His legal team are going to go back pretty hard, I think.
I think they will.
Because there was a huge amount they didn't produce, dozens of pieces of evidence that he gave.
And Boris's main
They made
contention.
some very incorrect assumptions.
Yeah.
They said things like you only got advice from SPADs when actually it was Cabinet Secretary and Director Generals and,
So I think...
Jesus Christ, he was the man setting the rules, telling us plebs, what we could and couldn't do. Every night, either him or Hancock or Raab or Sunak would appear on TV and tell us what we could and couldn't do. And you're telling me he needs to get advice on what he can and can't do? But he's telling me what to do? Oh, come on. It's a pathetic defence.
I think Boris's team have a lot to get into, and he's got David Pannick and lots of very serious people to look at the case.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just a classic example of the Tories taking over our airwaves. And interestingly, this is going to be here for years to come. So even after they get wiped out at the next election, hopefully, fingers crossed, we will still be putting up with this rubbish. It's going to be like Fox News after Barack Obama was elected in 2008. That's what Talk TV and GB News are going to be like. So Talk TV and GB News will just become these right-wing havens where 24/7 everything they do is criticising the Labour Party. You'll have the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, who will probably not be an MP anymore. He'll probably be the Lord Mogg. And you'll have Nadine here, who's clearly trying to forge some sort of career in media, even though she reads off an auto cue like she's been held hostage. So I'm sorry to have put you through that, but I think this is genuinely a sign of things to come. I don't know whether there will be a left-wing version of these channels at any point. I don't know whether there's an appetite for it. Not, by the way, that I would advocate or I would be okay with two sitting Labour MPs talking alongside each other like this. Nor would I be okay with two Lib Dems, two SNP, two Green Party, anyone. But unfortunately, both... Well, look, I think Kwasi Kwarteng, he's a Surrey MP, isn't he? There are no Labour MPs in Surrey, so I think Kwasi Kwarteng's seat is safe. Nadine's in deep trouble, of course, so that's why she's doing this. This is the future, unfortunately. Unless, when there's a change of government, Ofcom rules are changed to stop this kind of thing happening. Because no two sitting members of Parliament from the same party should be sat on our television screens. I don't know, it's propaganda at best. Alright, thanks for watching. Take care.